Have you gone mad?
The whole world's gone mad, my son.
Well, I am Grant from Screen Rant. How you doing today, Vic?
I'm good, Grant. Nice to meet you, mate.
It's nice to meet you as well, and I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about season 2 of this show. I watched all the way through episode 7 last night. They haven't given me the finale yet, but I've loved every episode so far. And so my first question is sort of a macro question. You've been with the show since the start. You guys obviously started on season 2 almost right away, but I'm curious, were there any major lessons you took from season 1 as far as whether it's the action or the overall direction of scenes in sort of going into season 2's production?
I think it's more of an understanding of what you're trying to achieve. When you start a show with Superman or anything else, you have to set the characters, you have to set the people, and then you build up. And this is actually doing it all the way through. But I feel after season 1, we'd had the characters, we knew the style, we knew how they were performing and where they were going to a certain degree. And again, referring to Indiana Jones, by the time we got to The Last Crusade, the costume fitted, everybody knew what the style was. When we did the first one, it was just a quick movie, it was the B movie. By the time we did the third one, we knew where we were going, we knew what the scale was, and we knew what the achievement had to be as well. And it's the same with this show. We knew the end one, the last one was big, and it was growing bigger as you progressed through the episodes. So we had to start on this at a decent level, and we had to still finish at an even higher level. You keep setting the bar higher. So it was a question of doing that, keeping the characters all in their characters, in their personalities, but at the same time writing into the thing enough battles, enough grandeur to make it exciting and grow and different from the first one. And working with Patrick and JD Payne, we could meet before we started shooting. We'd talk, and I'd read their script and they'd tell me what the battle was and the pertinent points they wanted. So I'd throw my 3 pennyworth in of what we could do here, what we could do there, and everything else. And that evolves a battle plan. Then I had a big Bible. We used to call it the Battle Bible, a bit of book thick as that, and we had everything, all the action in it marked out through there. And it's just a case of planning it all. But we knew we had to get bigger and better and make it bigger screen, if you like,
Well, I love that you took that mentality, and I think you guys struck a great balance of, like you say, that real character development as well as just some big epic set pieces, which I will get into in a moment. But I wanted to touch on the fact that you mentioned, following these characters as they grow and evolve. And one thing I've always loved about action is when you have a good stunt coordinator like yourself and a good action unit director, they really make sure to incorporate that character's emotional journey into the action itself. And I'd love to hear sort of what was one scene in this season in which you really worked with the actor to ensure that that character's journey was being felt through their fight sequence.
Yeah, I think Robert Aramayo, Elrond, he was very pertinent in this, as in the last battle and everything else. And he's a classic actor, not a horseman, not a fighter. He's not a bruiser, He wouldn't come and threaten you outside of a nightclub. But we wanted to make him look as a powerful leader of men and people. So he worked really, really hard on his sword work, on his riding. He learned to ride, and you see him galloping into shots. And for me, it gives me a great sense of pride, because the other thing I like to do when I'm doing action is to get the actor in as much as possible. I've worked with Tom Cruise, and you take it to the complete extreme with him, and he does do it. He does the great stunts, which we rehearse tons and tons and tons beforehand, but he does it. And it pays off in spades. Tom Cruise is known for being the man on camera that you're looking at. You're not some faceless stuntman. So with Robert, I wanted to see him galloping in on his horse and galloping out and killing people and fighting people and looking terrific. And the same with Ismail Arondir. He's another one, and a great mate of mine, and he works hard at it, and it'd be sacrilege not to see him do this, take the benefit of this hard work. So apart from the emotional part, which the wonderful screenwriters write into it and the wonderful actors take and translate, you give them a nice palette to be able to translate it on and be seen in without having to wait for a stuntman to do the fight and then turn around and then I'll pop into camera and do my little bit. Their characters shining all the way through. And that's, to me, is really, really important, which is what you lose when you see the DC sort of stuff where some person that can never be hurt anyway getting smashed around, and the only time he talks is when you want him to talk, and you feel you feel nothing for him, whereas these people, you actually feel they're real people, and they do think if somebody whacked him over the shoulder with a sword, it would cut him. But yeah, so you want to keep that reality into it, and the actors really appreciate it and they grow with it. They're nervous to begin with, and nervous in as much as being seen to do action that they're not comfortable with. But when they do it enough, and I get them to come over and I said, now look at the video screen, show them the playback, see what I'm talking about. Oh yeah. And then it gives them inspiration, So I think that's a very important part about doing action. It's there's so much action done nowadays, from the sublime to the ridiculous. And so it's not about as big a bang as you can make it, or how many people you can do in it, or how high you can climb up a hill. It's all about the motivation of that action and how realistic it feels to the audience in the storyline you're trying to tell. And to me, that's what it's all about.
I love that Robert stepped up the way he did, because I loved seeing Elrond in that final battle. It was pretty epic to see him, like you say, really become powerful the way he is. And since you mentioned Ismail, I did also want to ask, on the note of, keeping it grounded and realistic, he has that fight with the sort of aquatic creature in the Black Forest, and I'd love to hear what it's like finding the right balance with these sort of big CGI set pieces and keeping the actors grounded and making it feel real for the audience when they're in it.
Yeah, that was a nightmare to shoot that sequence because of the mud and the slime and everything else. But again, we had to use Ismail as much as we could, and he's up for it. He's a man to go for it, and the hardest part is getting people to work with him as well, because they're going to shine as well. So it's just gruesome and grubby and horrible. But again, like I said, you've got to do as much for real as you can. It's got to be, you've got to feel the audience and think, oh my heavens, I couldn't do that, and disappearing under slime and all sorts of things. And they really do a lot for their art, I must say, these actors on this show, because we put them through it. But they do get a lot of intensive training and a lot of upfront warning and rehearsal time on set, which is what it's all about, so you don't rehearse on camera, or they're not experimenting with their people seeing them on camera when they don't feel 100% right with a piece of action. So it's all those sort of things you have to get into it, and then you got to dial all that into your schedule and the costs, and get it's a huge multi-layered thing shooting movies. It's crazy.
I can only imagine how crazy it must be, but again, you pulled it off so well. And I'd love to also hear about Morphet's action this season, because we saw plenty of it in season 1, but this season almost feels more intense for her character, as though she's almost been empowered and really confident with the ring now on her. What was it like, sort of boosting her up and working with her in rehearsal and in filming to shoot some of her action sequences in comparison to season 1?
It was fabulous, because in season 1, as I say, she was growing into a woman like Galadriel. And in season 2, it starts off with that wonderful horse chase I did, where she's chasing to try and get the ring and everything else. Thundering Through, which we shot in Windsor Great Park, just underneath the Queen's Castle there, and right across all of Berkshire there. And she's great now. We taught her to ride on season 1, and she's really confident on a horse now, and she looks very queen-like on a horse. And then into the battle season, the fight scenes, she flows. She's a wonderful, actually, athlete. She won't believe it, and I keep telling her this, but she is an incredible athlete. She's got great body control, great balance, got a dancer's balance. She can turn and do things and still keep in character and deliver her lines. She's an absolute joy to work with, and anything you want to do action-wise, she's up to do it. Training on season 1, we had her underwater, dragging her on her back, on cables underwater for 15, 20 minutes, just with the breathing apparatus in between shots. And she's up for everything like that, and a real team player. So it's wonderful to see her developing as the show's going on into a really great queen.
I can't wait to see what comes next from her in the finale, which I've seen in the trailer at the very least, that we do get a fight between Galadriel and Sauron. And I'm curious, obviously you can't tell me what happens in the fight, but I would love to hear sort of how much work went into that, given it is such an emotional, plot point for both of those characters.
Yeah, that's worked out on the location to make it look slightly different and feel different and everything else. And as you say, it's keeping their characters alive, so one doesn't domineer the other, and then he does to a certain degree, then she'll help to domineer him. It's just keeping that balance. It's like music, really, trying to get the right tones. You've got all the right instruments there, but it's getting the right ones to play the right tune, right moments. And it's a lot of rehearsal for these guys, because they're shooting 8-10 hours a day nearly all the time, and she's in a huge amount of the movie, so she's very busy. So it's a case of being able to drag them away and do their rehearsal time and have them commit to it 100% rehearsal time. Otherwise, you've got to concentrate. Otherwise, you do get your fingers bashed or hit somebody over the head. It's a lot of intense work for them, and they do earn their crust, I must say. And, I'm good at the action and everything else, but they do something which I could never do, and that's act, and they're so good at it. It's wonderful.
Now, Charlie didn't have too much action, I feel like, in season 1 in comparison to season 2. And I'm curious to hear what it's, again, like collaborating with him on that side, because, it sounds like everybody's game for doing the training, but I'd love to hear about working with him in particular.
Yeah, Charlie's game for everything. He's one of those guys, if you tell somebody to put their hand up, he's the first one up, and we put him on a horse, and he just wanted to gallop from day one. And he's wonderful. He'll buckle down, and he's got a great sense of humor as well, which is lovely. A lot like Harrison in a lot of respects like that. He's got a twinkle in his eye, and he's just a great character, and he'll work with you and do whatever you want and throw his own ideas in. Some may be silly, some may be great. It's just one of those people that's a joy to actually train and work with and then shoot.
And then, since you mentioned Wednesday, I did also want to ask, how is filming going on that? How far along are you on season 2?
We're great. We're 2/3 of the way through, I think, and I'm having a great time. It's terrific. Yeah. I really enjoy it. It's fabulous to work with Tim. He's an amazing character, and I'm thrilled to see Beetlejuice. Looks like maybe going over 100 mil. It's looking brilliant. Yeah, it's great.
So what is similar to my first question with this show? What was sort of the big lesson that was taken from Wednesday season 1 going into Wednesday season 2, as far as making any major changes or just, shifting the vision a little bit as far as the action and direction goes?
We saw everything is driven by the script, and I think they went, they finished on a high note on the last one. The bar was pretty high, but then we had to come in and still leave ourselves somewhere to go to on the bar with this one. So we realized on the last one, you cannot rehearse enough on all these shows, because actually when you get down to shooting it, there's not that much time really, because of everything else that's involved. Doing battles with the orcs and everything else, you get very limited time because of makeup. They 4 or 5 hours to make them up, and they're on the set for 3 or 4 hours. They can't work too long because they've contact lenses in, and they have to be recycled out for more orcs and so on and so forth. So there's lots of scheduling problems. So the more rehearsal time, A, for the characterization, and B, for the talent in the fights and in the action, in all the movement, the more you can do that, we realize the better. And so people, are much more comfortable in their character if it's an action character. But that's about all. I think it's sort of growing into a pretty normal thing now. We all know what we're doing, the clothes fit, as it were, and we're all feeling comfortable. We know it's a big challenge each time, but everybody feels totally up for it. Nobody feels overwhelmed or anything. So it's big screen. I compare some of the battles to David Lean Kurosawa, John Ford. I like big screen and I like the big mass stuff, you know, and then cutting into it. And I've done lots over the years, from the Four Feathers, and nearly 2,000 people in a battle there, and going back to the 70s, before you were born, going back to 72, I did Young Winston with 300 horses, which is a lot of horses, you know. And so it's very exciting for this to actually get back to that sort of standard of real monster charges and battles and light brigade business, you know.
It's incredible how much you all have balanced practical action with CGI in this show, and I love every second of it. So kudos to you all on that. And I think that's all for my time. So I will get on out of here. But Vic, thank you so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Grant.
I think it's safe to say that something has awoken them.
No. Someone